So we are 1 day away from our AP World History exam. I just wanted to record this last video just to tell you what is it that you need in order to pass the AP World History exam. And I'll tell you that the first thing that you need to have or know is the rubric, right? You must know where the points are coming from and how you're being evaluated, so that at the time that you're developing your response, you know, okay, I've already addressed these points, and then there's still these other points I can work with so that I can increase my score and get a better chance at passing the AP exam. So just be familiar, know where the points are coming from. So the other information that's provided here is something I talked about yesterday when we met, which is the quick essay outline. So what's the idea of the essay outline is for you to know how you are going to organize your essay. So paragraph 1 would be the context that you would take from the information that's provided to here. You would rephrase it, reword it, right, from the historical developments, depending on what is it that they're asking you. If let's say that they're asking you about the Columbian Exchange, so then you would briefly skim through this information, and then just to rephrase some of the information that is included here and provide some of the examples and details, right? So if you're talking about diseases, then you can say diseases such as smallpox, etc., influenza, etc., right? So that'll give the reader the idea that not only do you know the broad context, but that you also provide concrete examples, and that for sure is going to give you the point for context. The thesis, remember that you have to read very carefully the prompt, right? The prompt is the key. One way to write your thesis is just to rephrase the essay prompt and then just take a position towards how you're going to address what your argument is towards that prompt that you've been given, right? So if it says, to what extent did Christianity influence the New World, then you must address that directly. Paragraph 2 is your first body paragraph, and it should include a topic sentence, a description, and a connection to the prompt of 2 documents, and an attempt to HIPS. Your paragraph 3, which would be your second body paragraph, would include a topic sentence, a description, and a connection to the prompt of 2 other documents, and another attempt at HIPS. So according to this outline, I'm asking you to work with 4 documents, right? So my recommendation is that you should work with at least 3 documents throughout your essay, and ideally, of course, with 4. The rationale behind working with at least 3 documents is that in case you misinterpret a document, you can still get those 2 points from correctly describing and supporting your arguments with the 2 other documents that are left, right? So if you attempt for 3, but in case let's say that you forget to make the connection to your argument in one of the documents, then that leaves room for error, and you can still get those 2 points that are very, very valuable. As far as HIP, I'm also suggesting that you at least try for 2 HIPs, just in case one of them is incorrect, then you still have 1 point. And ideally, to try to go for 3 attempts, and just in case one of them is wrong, you still have the opportunity to get the whole 2 points that are allocated for HIPs. In my point of view, and the way I see this, is that you have the skills to work with purpose and point of view. I think those are the easiest to identify in the document, and you've had practice throughout the year with our do nows and our IB content. So that's the easiest way to go for HIPs. If it's evident, since when you read the document, include it there right away. The conclusion is not something that's not required. You should only do this if you've ideally completed all the steps before, including meaning that you have attempted for HIPs at least 3 times, and that you've worked with 4 documents, that you have your thesis, your context, etc. Then you can maybe write a conclusion that can potentially help with the complexity point. So what are the minimum requirements to get 6 points? I am thinking that you will pass if, like, a guarantee that you will pass if you score at least 6 points. We don't know exactly how many points are going to be required because IB hasn't released that information, but you should pass with 6. It might be 5, but we're not sure. We don't know. So let's just aim at 6. So where would those points come from? They would come, 2 would come from your context and your thesis. And remember that for your context, like I said, you can rephrase the historical development that are in your notes. And remember that this is rephrased. You cannot copy directly from the notes because those are notes that I took from the AP World History Guide that College Board makes available to everybody. So they would immediately identify that you did a copy paste, and that would have consequences, not only in our school, but also College Board will report that you copied or that you plagiarized information to the colleges that you're applying like next year. So let's avoid all of that. So those are 2 points there. Then describing and supporting your argument based on 3 documents. You would get 2 points for this, assuming that you misinterpret one document, right? So that leaves room for error. You're not going to get additional points for working with 3 documents with that third document, but at least there's room for error, and you can still get 2 points for working well with 2 documents. Then HIP, 1 point, assuming you try to do HIPs on 2 documents and one of them is incorrect, then you still have a point. And then outside evidence, 1 point. So this is evidence outside the document. That is why it is called outside evidence. And this can come from your notes as well, as long as you rephrase the information. So you can elaborate sentences with the information provided in our review tables that complement your interpretation of the documents, or that help you create your topic sentences and also bring additional information, right? So if they're, for example, they're talking about technological innovations in the maritime empires, and the documents mention the magnetic compass and the astrolabe, but they do not mention the caravel, they do not mention cartography, new rudders, etc. They don't mention these examples that you have here. Then you can create sentences with this, and that will give you the point for outside evidence, right? There are 2 points available for that, but if you get at least 1, then that'll give you that 1 point, and this in total adds up to 6 points, right? So remember, this is my rationale behind me asking you to do at least 3 documents, to do at least 2 HIPs. Why? Because there has to be room for error. There's of course other ways in which you can do this. Let's say that you feel like I completely don't understand what a HIP is, and if you do not know at this point, I suggest that you go and see Eric's exemplar and also Jackie's, that they attempted HIPs in their last mock and they did a really good job at it. So make sure that you go and see those exemplars. But if you, after all seeing the exemplars, you still don't know how to do HIPs, or it's not something that you think you're going to be able to do, then attempt for 4 documents so that you can get that additional point that you would need from here. Because if you work with 4 documents to support your argument, then you get that additional point. Or even if you feel like you've provided enough outside evidence, that you've provided other examples, you created sentences that give further information than that provided just in the documents, then you could also potentially get 2 points here and not have to do any of the HIPs. But again, I think that we can do purpose and point of view because we've been doing that the entire year. Just make sure that you look at the exemplars and see how that stating the purpose of the point of view also has to be connected with your argument. So that's it for me. That's all I wanted to say. I feel like this was necessary. It might help some of you clarify some doubts that you may still have. And That's it for me. I'll see you on Thursday after the test to talk about how amazing you did.